So, how can women bring their best self to the workplace? Welcome, everybody joining us online today. Now, health insurance players Oman Insurance and Bupa Global have partnered with us at Arabian Business to present this discussion with you today. The ultimate goal of assessing how women can be at their best, both physically and mentally, in the workplace. In the UAE, Oman Insurance have collaborated with Bupa Global to offer a comprehensive range of international health insurance plans. And prior to today, we've carried out a survey online which drilled into this burning issue. And I'm delighted today to be joined by three guests who can help me unpack these important findings and discuss what they mean. My first guest is Anna Russell, who is Corporate Responsibility and Sustainability Director for Bupa Global and the UK Bupa Foundation Director. Sarah Boeri is HR Director with the Ras Al Khaimah Tourism Development Authority. And Kelly Whitehead is founder of the Female Fusion Network, the UAE's largest community for women in business. And I am Scott Armstrong, the Editor-in-Chief of Arabian Business. Welcome today. Before we get started, I'd just like to remind the audience that they can post questions in the chat box if they would like to. So, Anna, we will begin with you. I have long said that mental health is a conversation whose time has come. Why is now the right time to talk about women's health in the workplace? Why now?
Well, a huge thank you for that question, Scott. And before we get into the answer of why now, I'd just first like to say a big thank you to Oman Insurance. So they're Bupa Insurance's partner in the UAE, and they've invited me to be a part of this session. So thank you very much to them for that. So, I mean, it's always a good time to talk about health in the workplace, particularly about women's health in the workplace too, because obviously there are lots of challenges that come with that. But now I think it's absolutely critical. And I think the survey gives us some of the answer to this, that actually, unfortunately, only 28% of women who were surveyed said they would be comfortable sharing health related problems with their manager. So I think also the effect of COVID has made a difference. And you know, on the negative side, the pandemic has definitely exposed some of the biggest challenges that we face as a society, but also exacerbated some of the issues that women were already facing and potentially kind of suffering a bit in silence. And particularly the blurring between work and home life for them has been a struggle, and quite often, you know, 42% that this negatively affected their well-being during the pandemic. So I think the time is absolutely right now to be facing into those conversations. And I think, you know, on the positive side as well, that employers are actually really open to having these conversations right now as well. So that's why the time is now.
So I'll bring you in here. As Anna was saying there, it seemed like a positive stat that actually 56% of the survey respondents felt that their company were trying to support women in terms of positive employee well-being, and a further 22% said they're not there yet, but they're trying. Ras Al Khaimah Tourism Development Authority, what did you do in that HR space to try and tackle this?
Well, for us at RAC-TDA, employee well-being has been on our mind and at the forefront of everything we do since long before we were confined to our houses. It's been the driving force in all of our HR decisions and all of our HR policies. We used to start before the pandemic happened. We would have physical one-on-ones with all of the employees just to kind of check in and see how they were doing. However, for a lot of companies, the pandemic was a catalyst that they needed in order to really focus on employee well-being and in order to really let go of a lot of antiquated way of doing things. Because from an HR perspective, the pandemic was one of the best things to happen to us because it really took away from that 9-to-5 old school model of the way that we used to do work. And it also gave us a common goal. So we were all fighting for one common purpose, which is our safety and our well-being in this time. And what a lot of companies found is that during the pandemic or working from home, we were a lot more efficient and a lot more productive because at work we have a lot of unnecessary or unproductive meetings. There's a lot of water cooler chats, and there's not really a benefit of finishing your daily tasks earlier because you still have to stick around for the 9 to 5. Whereas at home, the benefits or the rewards of finishing a task earlier, or being a lot more efficient in terms of your work, it meant that you could finish off your tasks earlier and then have spare time to do what you love, either be with your family or do something that you love or cook. Everyone turned into the next top chef in the pandemic. And so I would say what the 22% could do in order to really focus on employee well-being is to relook at the 9 to 5 workday, which is what we did at RACTDA. So now we work more on a project-based approach, where it doesn't really matter when the employee gets, or like in what hours an employee works, as long as it's done within the deadline that's set, and the deadline is agreed with both the employee and the manager. And what this does is, for a lot of people, for example, working parents or people with different lifestyles, it gives them that flexibility to work at their own hours and at their own pace. Well, so much pace-wise, as long as they get it done by the deadline. And then what we did over and above that at RACTDA is we launched a lifestyle credit, which is it's a benefit or a credit benefit that's given across the board to standardize a lot of the different benefits that people have. So it's called a lifestyle credit because you can use it on 5 different areas of your lifestyle. And depending on what your lifestyle is, you can mix and match. So for example, if I have a pet, but I don't have kids, I could use the credit on vet bills. Or if I like cars, I could use it on maintenance fees. So it's a wide variety of things. And I would say get innovative with the different approaches. There's so many things you can do.
You're going to find my CV on your inbox tomorrow morning. Kelly, I'll come back to that question I came to started with Anna, because you'll be saying is you're connected into this massive network of women in business. Why now? Why is it important now? And are you hearing more? Has there been more conversation about this? Is there more awareness?
Well, absolutely more conversation. And why now? Well, it was necessary before, but you know, not to bring a negative spin after Sarah's such a glowing description of how her company works and supports its staff. But you know, not everybody has leaders and management who work that way. And not only that, the importance of, you know, people are now starting to talk about a she session. You know, not a word I particularly love, but there's just no doubt about it. And it's not UAE based, it's obviously global, that actually coming out of the pandemic, which we are, of course, coming out of this pandemic, we're feeling now, more even so than last March, that women are really feeling the after effect. And it's the after effects of all the pressures that were put on top of us just due to the practicalities that the pandemic brought with it. So homeschooling children, worrying about running their business, worrying about whether they were going to keep their jobs. So many people obviously lost their jobs or were put on half pay and still expected to work, going back into the workforce when things open back up, and health and safety point of view. Again, sadly, some terrible management coming down from above. And then the pressures, obviously, of the women who are in charge of their own workforce and feeling, you know, really kind of empathetic towards their own staff and how they can take care of them. And, you know, we neglect our health at times like this. We power through, and we're going to see, I think, some after effects of that as well. The fact that we've probably neglected those visits to the doctors, or those little niggles, or those actual physical health issues that you know we might have taken care of in more normal times.
Anna, you referred to it in your first answer, which is that blurring between work and home life. And we saw that in the research and in the survey findings, and perhaps not a massive surprise that the majority of women who responded to this said that it had impacted their mental health. What sort of advice are you able to give to employees or benefits? COVID has obviously had an impact on well-being. How do we create positive cultures for well-being in the workplace for women?
Yeah, absolutely. And said in the survey, 35% of women said they were worried actually that speaking about their mental well-being will harm career progression. So obviously, we need to make sure that organisations are creating open, supportive cultures for that. But looking at the positive side of things, I think one of the things that COVID has done, and Sarah and Kelly both touched on this, is the fact that employee well-being is now really high up the agenda, and particularly people's mental well-being. So I think, the first thing that we can do is actually, and it was great to hear what Sarah said about this, you're actually empowering employees to take care of their own well-being, and particularly to give them some agency, to give them some choice about what's going to work for them. So that might be, working flexibly, being in the office if they need to be in the office, maybe being at home if they can do their job to, the best of their ability at home sometimes. So actually, giving employees that sense of empowerment and permission to do what's right for them so that they can be at their best, to do their best work. And also making sure that you're kind of role modeling as leaders and managers healthy ways of working as well. So, if you are working from home, or even in the office traditionally as well, putting in place important boundaries between kind of work life and home life as well, so people feel like they don't have to be chained to the PC perhaps all the time. The importance of for doing good work, you need to feel good. Sometimes that means that you need to make sure you take time to recharge as well. I think the other really important point is making sure that managers are actually educated in this space as well, and understand that they can play a really vital role in creating a supportive, caring environment for their people, and that this is absolutely crucial. So those are the main headlines for me on that one.
Yeah, Kelly, I'll bring you in here first. I can see you nodding away there, Sarah, but I'm going to bring Kelly in first. Around this area of working from home, within your network of members, what's the kind of collective wisdom here? Are there tips, advice, suggestions? How have your members been supporting each other in this space?
Well, 100% the support's been there from day one. I think literally going back to last March and the shock of the lockdown and what that meant for many people with regards to worrying about work and their businesses, it became a case of, right, we're here for you. And, I, as leading a network, I don't like to pay lip service, and I don't want to tell people it's all going to be okay when clearly, obviously, right now, that week, that day, it isn't. And there was only so much we could do, with regards to, say, government stimulus, etc., or people needing help with rent for the premises, be able to pay the staff, those kind of very practical things. However, to be able to kind of have a 24/7 chat room, let's call it that, was obviously really, really useful. And do you know what the collective wisdom really is? This sounds slightly trite, I appreciate that. A lot of it has been buckling down and getting on with it in a way that I think women do in their own unique way. And being able to reach out to different sectors as well. You had a time when people over 60 weren't allowed out of their houses, out of their homes, and there's a lot of women, there's a lot of active women over the age of 60 who very much like to go out of their homes. You've obviously got parents then whose children under the age of 12 weren't allowed out of their homes, and then you've got people managing, obviously, having to homeschool the children and work from home. So collectively, I would say, coming out of it, what we're seeing now hugely is a really obvious, almost like a burnout phase, like a recovery phase, where actually having carried on for a year It's literally now in 2021 and business is picking up for everybody, and Dubai in general is getting busier and more back to normal from that point of view. We're actually seeing a collective sense of exhaustion of what's just happened. And again, support comes in so many forms. It comes in asking that question, obviously, that you get an answer to. It comes in the help of helping somebody find staff, helping somebody manage legislations, rules and regulations, costs, etc., all associated with managing staff. And again, what's been brilliant to see is a couple of our members, at least, and I know there'll be many more. So a lot of people know about Safe Space. The amazing team at Safe Space are now being able to offer almost on like that freelance, that subscription basis, mental health care services, support and forums to individuals and individual businesses. So that's helping out the companies and and HR managers who I do have full empathy for throughout the past 12 months. We have a psychologist who has a busy practice in Dubai, Dr. Sarah Razmi. She's now launching a subscription, but again, a subscription-based support service for mental health that again corporates can buy into for the benefits of their own staff as well as individuals. So there's been many positives have come through this, and again, as a support network, collaboration is key, and literally just being there to have your friends back, to have your fellow woman's back, and be able to answer those questions and offer the support in all the ways that I've mentioned that you can. So it really has been about looking after each other for sure.
Now, speaking on behalf of men, I can say that we do buckle down too, but we will complain very loudly about it as we do it. Sarah, Anna was there talking about the need for leadership to kind of show the way there. I mean, obviously you're leading the HR department. This is really important to get this from the top down, isn't it?
Yeah, it's incredibly important, and it's one of the first red flags that we saw once we entered the pandemic, was that because I was talking about we were a lot more efficient working from home because we were less distracted by just the regular chit chat and time wasting that we're so accustomed to at work. So suddenly you were getting the job done in like 6 hours rather than 8. Actually, very rarely 6 hours. It was about 5 hours of work that you would actually get done. And what managers started to do was to give employees all of this extra work because they were scared they weren't busy enough, and they just weren't used to finishing their day at 3 or at 4, and starting at 11 and finishing at 4. And so it was that one-on-one culture that we continued long into the pandemic at RecTDA, where we had the virtual one-on-ones in order to see the different struggles that people were basically facing, and it was different for different people. And one of the red flags that came up from the employees to us as HR is that we have a lot of unnecessary busy work. And then we had to have a meeting with the leaders where we clarified that as far as we were there, everyone's role was secure and there was no need to give people extra work. The pandemic was hard enough. And I do genuinely believe that as leaders, especially over here at RecTDA, we have a very people-centric culture. And the minute they were made aware of it, and the minute they were told that it's okay not to be busy for 8 hours of a day, they relaxed, and they were one of the first to jump on the bandwagon of not adding unnecessary pressure and trauma on the employees who were getting used to it. So I fully agree. It needs to come top down.
And Annie, Sarah there mentioned the word security. One of the other findings we found in that survey, wasn't it, was that when women were asked, what was the biggest aspect of mental health in their job security came out very strongly as the biggest thing that had impacted their mental health over the last 12 months. What kind of advice, or what's your perspective on that? What can employers do in this space? Because that stress impacts both health and mental health. So it's important to get the message right in that space too, no?
Yes, absolutely. So I think it's really important that employers kind of create, as far as they can, a kind of a safe and caring and open and honest environment for their employees. and also giving them the kind of the mental well-being support if they, if they need to call someone to talk about something, if they're worried about an issue. So not just job security, but any issue like that. But I think that the key here is kind of openness and honesty about what's going on, so that people feel in control of their destiny, and encouraging women and men to do what they can to make sure that they're in control of that is really important. I mean, obviously, it's not always possible to wave a magic wand and make everything secure, but it is possible to have those open and honest conversations.
That is interesting, because I've heard that a lot, particularly over the last 3 or 4 months. Not necessarily, the physical situation out there, but an individual's ability to control their environment or control what's happening to them. Kelly, what's the conversations between the Female Fusion Network? How can people take control? How can women take control of this situation, particularly when so many of them, we've seen the research from the UN. We've seen that actually women have carried the bigger burden of this during the pandemic. So how can women take control of the situation?
We talk about it often, and even just earlier today, there's boundary setting, and what we're seeing with obviously more women in leadership, which obviously needs to be encouraged, initiatives for more women on boards and things like that, and exactly as Sarah says, and I know we all agree, it has to come from the top down. And there's some excellent managers and some excellent companies out there. There's also some terrible ones, and I think we need to feel.
I think we've all worked for them.
Yeah, well, the thing is that I've worked for other people and flexibly for 15 years. And, again, there's some terrible managers out there. And for me, really, my ideal would be the benefit of a little bit of both. I don't think sitting in your corner desk at home or wherever that might be, if you've got a beautiful big office at the bottom of the garden or anything like that, is 24/7 is ideal, nor is feeling that you've got to you change to the cubicle for 8 hours. When, as Sarah says, nobody does 8 hours work a day, nobody. And I think that flexibility, I think it's just become I felt that I already knew it. A lot of women who already work flexibly knew that they knew it, and now it's just more than ever. It's a bit like, it's the old ways. It's done. It's done. When you can't say that people are less productive, working more flexibly, you have no excuse. You have no excuse not to bring that from the top down into the working environment, and to be able to, like I say, it's about getting the job done, as opposed to hustling yourself into the ground or spending 2-3 hours a day in traffic or on public transport, all of which has a really negative effect on your mental health, which again puts stresses on your body, which leaves us physically under the weather. So an opportunity for people to work at their own levels, yet still getting the work done in a way that suits them. It's a future, and we knew it already, but now hopefully more people do.
I mean, Sarah, increasingly this is a knowledge. We work in a knowledge-based economy, so the main engine of production that our industries now have are our minds, our creativity, our talent. And there's been so much research that says that employees who get it right actually have better performing companies. Why is this so hard for employees to actually grasp?
For employees or employers?
Employers.
Yeah.
I think the employees have all grasped it.
Yeah, the employees know better. I think when it comes to doing things a certain way, we're used to the status quo, and we used to get things done by way of audit tick box. We don't really understand why we're doing it, and we're also scared of change. Like, that's probably one of the biggest fears that we have as human beings is change, and fear of failure, and fear of making a mistake. And I think that's why I mentioned that the pandemic was the best thing to happen to the HR world and to the business world, if you ask me, in history. It revolutionized the way that we do business, because we were forced to all do it. We had no choice. I've been advocating work from home for years, and it got to a stage where everyone had to do it. And at first, everyone panicked. There were all these business continuity plans and freak out mode and busy work. But then once the panic subsided, people started to realize that there were so many benefits of working from home. The shorter commutes, the splitting your time, less gossip and rumor mills, and the meetings were a lot more productive rather than unproductive, because we used to busy up our day with meetings with like 7 people where nothing actually got done or nothing was decided. I have to say that for us at RAC TDA, we've really focused on that creative aspect and the fact that we aren't robots and we don't need to treat people like robots. And it's not a one size fits all. It's not a black and white approach. In order to be successful in HR in the future going forward, you need to have a customized approach where people do have the benefit of choice, and they can choose whether they want to work at the office or remotely. They can choose what to do with their benefits, full transparency. And we're really pioneering that. And I'm not sure, but I believe that we're one of the first in the industry to really give benefits that people can literally pick. They can pick their perk. They can pick where they spend their money. If they want to spend it on dependent visa costs or insurance fees, or if they want to spend it getting personal training or at the gym. We've really tried to revolutionize and standardize benefits, and it's shown in our results. We were #1 in so many areas last year. The amount of creative ads, as you mentioned, that came out, like the staycation campaign, right now the Funderful campaign that's rolling out, our numbers are soaring, and I genuinely believe it's because we trusted the employees and they're now giving us the best version of themselves.
Your inbox is going to be so full of CVs in the morning. Kelly, you have got so many women leaders in your network. What's their insight into this space? Because it's true, isn't it? You know, companies that do the right thing perform better.
They do, and it's just about people, and it's about humanity, and it's just talking to them, and it's just understanding them, and you know, kind of the elephant in the room, as it were, when it comes to kind of healthcare and mental health care, when it comes to women as employees and or leaders, is a discussion around maternity, and in the workplace, and benefits associated with that. There's the actual financial cost, and then there's also how many times do we hear from women within our network, and anecdotally, you know, I don't know how to tell them that I'm pregnant, or I don't, you know, I need to find a job. I've just found out I'm pregnant. Do I tell them at the interview? Do I not? You know, because the likelihood is, sadly, upon revelation of that news, they're not going to get the job or the opportunity. And that's kind of terrifying, because look, this is just humanity. It's part of life, and you know, and other illnesses and things like that kind of come with the whole package of being a woman, affecting us in particular, as opposed to our male counterparts. It's conversations. It's being able to just, and no matter how successful people are either, it's not about just being an employee at the beginning of a career ladder. It's about leading teams. It's about wanting to a very good conversation about women on boards with a friend who runs a business here. You know, she brought the maternity issue up about, you know, why are we not seeing women on boards? And it's because we kind of drop out of the corporate race quite often as employees when we go away to have our families, take a couple of years out, if they're lucky enough to be able to do so, and then upon coming back, you know, we're slightly down the rungs of that ladder, and it just kind of feels harder to grow as leaders, or that, you know, proverbial glass ceiling. So it's massive, and I just think that, like I said, the maternity aspect, I just think it's a really important thing to mention, you know, pandemic or no pandemic, and then of course the job security that just can't be taken for granted. It affects everything. It's our literally our livelihoods, isn't it? It's our roof over our heads. It's how we can afford healthcare for ourselves and our families, the school fees, the food on the table. It's everything. So industrial revolution is the right word. Revolution is absolutely the right word. I think there's no going back, and people who do great things will do better, and people who were always terrible will go by the wayside. How long that will take, I do not know, but revolution is the right word. It's just about saying, this is how we are now. It's actually how we always were, but this is how it is now.
So, Anna, one of the things we saw in the survey was we had employees mentioning that they'd not received information about the available benefits to them. So they didn't know that the help was there for them to access. At Bupa Global, what are you doing to support employers on this matter?
Oh, thanks for the question. So at Oman Insurance and Bupa Global in the UAE, our customers have access to a lot of information through the table of benefits, so they can understand the plan coverage and limits for them. And then they can reach out to our customer service teams for any questions they've got, or log into our customer portal, Members World. On top of that, we host wellbeing and information sessions for all our group customers, and particularly for expectant mothers, they can access the Bupa Family Plus app during their maternity period. And the last thing to mention is that our global virtual care app, that provides access to virtual care to our customers around the world. So really important that, you know, they can, at the press of an app, actually connect to somebody who can support them.
Staying with support, and I'm going to throw this question to you, Sarah, as someone within HR. I mean, one of the questions we examined in the survey was what kind of help had employees given given women, and they said, well, physical things like screens and desks to enable them to work from home. Yes, they all got it. But when you looked at did they get flexible hours to assist them in working, working remotely with children and with family? No. Did they get help or advice on where the health benefits were for them, either in their insurance policy or even general help on stress and anxiety? And again, the question was no. If working remotely is here to stay, we have got to get much better at this.
Yeah. I totally agree. I fully agree with everything that you said. And what people tend to think is that they tend to think it's really complicated to give support, when in actual fact, I think it was Anna who mentioned it. Sometimes all you need to do is listen. And just the very fact of listening alone, you're not there to solve anyone's problems, but you are there to share space with them and to really listen to what's bothering them. And so while I keep stressing that we have one-on-ones with all of our employees at RAC-TDA, it might seem like a very trivial, normal thing to do, but the amount of impact and the benefits that we get from these one-on-one sessions is tremendous, because we're literally listening to the customer and we're finding out firsthand what's bothering them, be it at work or be it at home. And then we're able to really customize and cater the work environment to an environment that really suits them. So for both men and women, we don't really look at it as a gender specific thing. We look at it very holistically, and we look at it as an employee, a whole employee, irrespective of gender or race or nationality or age. And we look at what we can do to make their lives better. We're so scared that if we talk to the employees, they're going to ask for more money. But from my experience, more often than not, they don't actually ask for more money. They ask for things like, can I leave 2 hours earlier so I can make it for my kids' bedtime? Mm-hmm. And start 2 hours earlier. So they have very reasonable requests if we just listen. So I would really stress the part of listening. It's quite daunting to feel like you're one-on-one with an employee and you might not know how to solve their problems. And if you don't, that's okay. Just say, I don't have the answer right now. Let me think about it and get back to you. And then come up with some way, somehow, to make their lives better, because there's always a way. There's always a way. It might not be the direct way, but there is a way to make it better. And that's what we do at RAC-TDA.
So Kelly, if we've got HR managers dialing into this webinar, from your members, what are the things that make a difference in this space? Because it's not a desk and a screen.
Sarah touched earlier on benefits and you know what her company does to be able to reward staff, and things like this is really important, because it's really easy as a PR initiative or a CSR initiative to claim, oh, we're giving this, we're giving that, but actually, what do people really want? How useful is something that is going to then actually cost that employee money to go and use in a way? You know, a day at a theme park, marvelous. How are they getting there? What, you know, what's it going to cost them to feed the family whilst they're there? You know, it's not necessarily relevant to their lifestyle. People really, really want healthcare benefits. And that, of course, now in 2021 is mental health benefits as well. And again, Sarah, Anna, you know, everybody stating that what to us is the obvious, which is having conversations, and there isn't always answers. And of course, there's always a little bit of friction, because I keep talking about bad management. Some staff are not so great either. There's no getting away from that. Do you know what I mean? We can't just assume that every member of staff is going to stay productive by working from home, is going to, and also recognition of the fact that Sarah mentioned she likes being in the office. I don't like being cooped up. I quite like being at home a lot, but you know, to be able to have the opportunity to be in the office, and sometimes it's really, really important. And we have seen some employees kind of taking the advantage the other way, and actually not really getting the job done, or demand when things open back up, kind of demanding. And I think people want to be listened to. I think they want to have those conversations. They want to feel that they're having that they have a realistic relationship with their management teams, and vice versa with their staff. So anything at all can be discussed rationally. Again, not answers for everything, and it's obviously about the health of the business as well. You know, you're not going to let everybody take a week off while you take on the work of 10 employees either. By the same token, it's just conversations, and we're not, if I can say anything, we're not where we were. We're not where we were, and it's brought things about. It's accelerated. I think it's accelerated the way that the workplace was going by a good, I don't know, a decade, 10 years, the past 12 months. It's accelerated where I think we were heading anyway. So that combination of work from home and that, let's call it occupational health that comes with it, both opportunities and challenges, has absolutely got to be met head on. I don't want to sit on Zoom for 9 hours a day either, and sometimes I do. That's not healthy. So, you know, again, could this have been an email? You know, I've got a mug that says that on somewhere. You know, could this meeting be an email? It works online as well.
Anna, Kelly's right about the conversation accelerating, isn't she? Because I mean, I think 12 months ago we weren't doing a webinar. We are now doing a webinar. You know, Arabian Business, Oman Insurance, Bupa Global, having a conversation. So there are more open conversations. It's great that we're having this conversation today. I wanted to turn to some of the insights out of the survey that we did together. And one of the things that worried me when I read that was the amount of women who were looking at, you know, if they had an anxiety attack, if they had a sleepless night, you know, mental things that really impact mental health. Tiny sliver would go and see the doctor. A tiny sliver would even consider taking a day off work, and a tiny sliver would even consider asking to work remotely. And instead, you know, there is buckling down, but at the same time, we had the vast majority saying they would simply self-medicate and turn up to work. That's something that seems like a cycle behavior that we need to break or address.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think it goes back to the point about, you know, employers doing all they can to support employees if they, you know, are feeling anxious or struggling with some kind of mental health challenge, and also making sure that they've kind of got the support package around them that they might need. So, you know, if they need some kind of professional help, can access, you know, it might be virtual care at the moment, so that they can get that. And also really breaking down the stigma that still might be attached to this. And I think, you know, something that we've done a lot of in our organisation is actually quite often it is helpful for leaders to lead on this topic and actually to show their vulnerabilities where maybe they have had challenges as well. So people understand this is, you know, mental health challenges are things that happen to all of us and the best of us at the, you know, at different times, and making sure that, if they're talking about it, it's then giving permission to people out there, their employees, their teams, to do the same thing. And the sooner people are kind of getting the help they need, then they should be able to get back on track and be at their best. So really important to be having those open conversations, and for leaders to be leading from the front on it. So, and also, putting in place the support and care that people might need.
I mean, I kind of understood it, not welcome it, but understood it, that mental health, because of the stigma, when it was a mental health issue, people were, and particularly women, are afraid to come forward. But I was surprised by the survey to see, if you looked at back pain or migraine or severe period pain in the case of women, physical pain, again, the response came back that won't go and see a doctor, won't go and take a day off, won't ask to remote work. And this kind of gels back to something that Anna was mentioning earlier about also, women not wanting to talk to their managers, particularly men, about female health issues. Sarah, again, as a HR department, how do you put in place, how do you open up that discussion? Because it's not right, there's health and there's mental health. But if people are in pain, whether that be mental or physical, they shouldn't feel like they have to drag themselves in and self-medicate. That seems wrong.
I totally agree. And again, this is one of the things that the pandemic revolutionized, because we've all been that person who has had a cold or a cough and has come to work pre-pandemic, and then infected probably like 10% of the population around you, because that was just the norm and that was just the culture. You're not going to take a sick day when you can still function and you can still walk and you can still to a certain level work. Whereas with the pandemic, to give the employees the flexibility where they're not sick enough to just stay in bed all day, but they can work from home, and they can just not take a sick day, because those are limited, and just take a remote work day whereby you're not really calling in sick, you're working, but not necessarily driving to work and getting there. And it's when the pandemic first happened, when we came back to work after the lockdown, we were quite strict in terms of people coming to work with any types of symptoms, just because we believed that everyone was making an effort to come to work, and we didn't want to put anyone at risk, and we didn't want to force anyone to come to work. But there were a few instances, despite multiple emails, despite me personally going up to people and saying, if you have any symptoms, please stay home. If you're not feeling well, please stay and work from home. We've all seen that it works. Yet people would still show up to work because they didn't believe that if they worked from home, they wouldn't be given a hard time. And it really took, and this is coming from a culture where we're like, please stay home if you're sick. So can you imagine cultures where they are required to work, and how much pressure that puts on the employee? So I would really stress, again, from a top-down perspective, it's number one about communicating what's right. So do not come to work and infect other people, or if it's back pain or any types of pain, don't put yourself at risk by commuting and coming across and not working productively. So that's one. And two is we're lucky enough at RACTDA to actually have mental health and psychological services as part of our insurance, and we stress that to all employees at all times. So if they're having any issues that we can see through the one-on-ones, the regular one-on-ones that we have, we point them in the right direction, and we say that we try and take away that stigma. And I use myself as an example sometimes, where I say, I have a psychologist and it's done me wonders. Maybe try it out. It worked for me. It might not necessarily work for you, but try it out. If not, try meditation. So I always try and put myself as not a guinea pig, but as a no judgment. I do it too. There's nothing wrong with it. Here's the guy or the girl's number. Give them a call. It's part of your insurance. Good luck. And then you just check up and let them know that they're not being judged for whatever it is.
Kelly, you were talking previously about health benefits, and that's one of the biggest priorities now for particularly your members in the Female Fusion Network. We're entering now, and around the world it's at different stages, but we're entering this kind of post-coronavirus growth landscape. We may be coming off the back of a period where health benefits for employees was scaled down. Do you think that companies that now don't get this right, as we go into this accelerating space where there'll be a war for talent, a need to retain staff, does health benefits all of a sudden become much more important than they were before, or which is they were always important, but there's now more focus on employees to absolutely get this right?
I think so. I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Scott, with regards to, and if I might let's be really real for a moment. It's financial, right? Mm-hmm. It is, a better package, a better healthcare package costs more money, costs more employers more money. But to have that choice of where you can go, who you can see, who your family can see, if it's a family package, and not, can you imagine being ill or needing services, but worrying that you're actually not going to get the right healthcare because you're on a lower, you've got lower benefits. I think, sorry to be blunt, but I think there's no two ways about it. It's a financial issue. So to have that taken off the mind of an employee it is vital. And it's almost like the equivalent of saying, is having school fees as part of the package if you're a parent. Like, wow, what a weight, we, as a few of us here know, what a weight off the old shoulders that would be if that was part of your employment benefits. Irrespective of the kind of nicer lifestyle things, which are very important, and I'm not decrying that for a second, but absolutely more than ever, more important than ever, especially over the past 12 months where employees have had salary cuts and hours reduction. We also know that people have been expected to go back to work full time still on salary cuts as well. Mm-hmm. To have the benefits, it's soul destroying. It leaves a terrible taste in the mouth against your employers and the business that you work so hard for, to not almost have basic life necessities covered, such as that. And it's not about necessarily the gold standard of maternity wings, or like the absolute best doctor, word on the street says that who you've got to go and see for XYZ, but to be ill and have to worry about who you can go see, or if you actually can go and see them. I mean, it's almost human rights, really. So, it's more important than ever, most definitely. And it will be top of employees' lists as well.
Sarah, I wanted to ask you, and we'll move into some of the final questions now. Within the HR department, what were some of the biggest lessons you learned when you looked at, right, what's the provision we're going to put in place? Or what were the things that made a difference that perhaps surprised you made a difference?
I think what surprised me the most, not related to the pandemic, is how simple employee requests are, and how, as HR professionals, we tend to just follow this audit tick box and not really listen to the employees. And sometimes it's just something so simple like listening to the employees and really thinking outside the box of ways to circumvent the policies or the processes or the procedures that you allegedly have to follow, but you don't know why. So really working together to find that solution. So in simple terms, listening and empathizing, and then understanding why you're saying no if you're saying no, and then explaining the reasons why you're saying no, so that the employee doesn't leave feeling disgruntled or like you're not listening. You explain it to them like an adult, because everyone is an adult. And what doesn't surprise me, but what I love continuously confirming is how rational people are once you take the time to explain certain things to them. So that's one. And I'll give a small example of what we did at RACTVA that goes well with what Anna and Kelly have been saying, in that, for example, for us, we don't really have control over who our insurance provider is, let's say, because we're part of a wider network. And a lot of the things that employees were worried about is this financial burden if something were to happen to them, if something unfortunate happened to them or their families. And so while we had no control over switching network providers, What we did have control over is coming up with a hardship policy, where if something tragic or unexpected or circumstantial has happened to a member of our team or their families, we would provide financial assistance to them. So in a way that took away any financial burden at the back of their minds. So even if you don't have control over the grander scheme of things, which is changing insurance providers because of whatever reasons you're dealt with, there are different ways that you can tackle the issue that still provides that financial comfort, but at the same time also protects the business or keeps the processes and procedures in place.
So Kelly, just to carry on from that, I mean, if we go back to the original question, which was how can employers help women bring their best self to the workplace? If I'm an employer and I've been watching this webinar thinking, right, I need to make a change, what's the fundamental things they should change? Where should they start? What will make the biggest difference?
Have a conversation. Survey your staff, just like you guys have surveyed the wider public, because everybody's needs are so different. And I hate to sound as simplistic as that, but that could be what it is. Anna needs to not work Thursdays because it's becoming impossible with managing an appointment that she has to keep or something with the kids. Sarah has terrible trouble with the back, so actually sitting at a desk 3 days a week isn't great for her. Everybody, everybody's situation. This is not about women either, really. It's the wider. It's the wider populace, and by having these conversations and working to fit. Look, happy employees do better work. It's just that simple. So the benefits are absolutely 100% on all sides. You have loyalty. Loyalty means your staff aren't going to leave you, which means you're going to save money on visas, and it costs you to re-employ people to find new staff. So keeping your workforce, basically, even things like upskilling. It's not necessarily about health. Employees in conversations with staff can discover that, I'm doing this job, actually, I'm really interested in that part of the business, and listening to them and providing the training opportunities, of course, the healthcare benefits. And I was talking about illness, and Anna quite rightly mentioned it's not just about being ill. It's like maintenance, isn't it? It's, being able to know that once a year you can have your breast health check screening. You're not struggling to find that extra 500,000 dirhams to go and do that. And exactly the same for men. Peace of mind. I think even businesses, no matter how big they are and how big they grow, we talk a lot about family business in Female Fusion and kind of being part of the family, and we're a family and stronger together and collaboration. I don't think that matters however big your business is. I think that ethos comes from the top down, people walking the walk, trusting their employees. And I think there's a massive lack of this in the region, just a basic trust in the people that you've hired. If you keep hiring the wrong people, then, you have to look at something else rather than just the people that you're hiring.
That's a recruitment issue, not an individual issue. Yeah, of
course it is. And, people want to feel useful. They want to do a good job for you. That's why you've hired them. Let them do it and simply have that conversation and understand. And it's win-win. It's win-win.
Anna, I'm going to bring you in here. I mean, Callie mentioned maintenance there, and we talked earlier about, we're a knowledge-based economy. If I was a manufacturer and I had machinery, I would maintain my machinery. I would oil it. I would make sure it was in tip-top working condition, because that's the engine of my output. It's vital, isn't it, that employees recognise that maintenance of us is important.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's 100% right. And, many organisations, most organisations, it's all about the people, isn't it? And exactly what Kelly said, and giving people a degree of choice and empowerment about how they look after themselves as well, and what that means for their working practices within reason, of course. I think, giving individuals a degree of control over that is really important. And this point that we come back to about, people who are well, people who are happy at work are going to perform at their best, which is going to help your organisation perform at its best. And, you know, doing everything that you can to invest in your people to be in that good place is critical. But I completely agree as well with the point about, you know, I think both Sarah and Kelly have made about, you know, there's a responsibility for the employer, but also, you know, we're grown-ups as well, so we should also kind of be taking control of our own health and well-being as well, and making sure that we're doing the things that keep us in a good place, and whatever that is for you. So for some people it's about, you know, having strict boundaries between work and life. It's about, you know, for some people about eating healthily, exercising, all of the things that add up to keep you in a good place, and making sure that we're holding on to those, doing those, and especially at the moment. And I think going back to the pandemic, you know, I think it's made a lot of us all realise what really matters to us in kind of our lives, but also in our jobs, and what we value, and making sure that we're holding on to that to keep ourselves in a good place. But 100%, you know, making sure that we take care of our people in workplaces, but also take care of ourselves is vital.
Now, I'm going to stay with you, Anna, because I've had one question in, which reminds me that you sit in an interesting position because you are obviously a service provider, and the question's directed at you from the audience, and thanks for posting that question. As an insurer, what are you doing to support the well-being of your customers? How do you make that process better?
Yeah, so at Oman Insurance and Bupa Global in the UAE, so customers will have access to information which kind of shows what they have according to their plan and what that offers. And obviously, you know, they can reach out to the customer services teams to really understand what it is that they are able to access, and they can do that online on MemberWorld or call up, of course. But in addition to that, you know, we provide a whole range of benefits, and some of that is actually about providing information, so kind of hosting wellbeing sessions for our group customers, you know, also offering things like virtual care, and that's become even bigger and more accepted during the pandemic, hasn't it? That, you know, if you are concerned about something, actually getting an appointment with a health professional that you can speak to virtually online is really important. And, you know, for some people, just speed and immediate access is of the essence there. And then, you know, looking at supporting women as well who are expecting, and providing, we offer them a Bupa Family Plus app during the period of their maternity. And the other thing that obviously we have done through COVID is that we've removed the pandemic exclusion. So really important change there that we've offered to customers that, you know, if unfortunately if somebody is affected by COVID-19, then they will get the support and care if they need, if they wish to access that. Sorry, there's one other thing to add.
Can I interrupt? Can I sign up for this? Actually, I just have something to say. I think Bupa is by far the only insurance provider I've ever either worked with or have spoken to people about where I've never received bad feedback. Never. Like, no matter who I ask, I'm like, who are you with, Bupa? I'm like, oh, okay, you're fine. So that's
so lovely to hear, Sarah.
Yeah,
Thank you for saying that. That's really generous of you. And
that seems like a really good place to wrap things up on a high. I could carry on this conversation for hours. Thank you for your insights in this space, and thank you for everybody that's joined us for this conversation. I think as Kelly was saying there earlier, keep having the conversation. If you're an employer or an employee, I think it is very important for us all to keep having this conversation so we get better at this, because it's definitely a journey, work in progress, I think, for many companies. It remains on me to say thank you to all my guests today, Kelly, Sarah and Anna. Thank you so much for your insights today. And thank you for teaming up with Arabian Business, both for us, at Oman Insurance and Bupa Global, both to do the survey and also for today's webinar. And we'll be posting both this webinar and the survey findings and stories on arabianbusiness.com. So if you want to learn more, dive in and come and visit us. So on behalf of us all, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.